You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, buy some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast and Hoodat. And Saints fans, Hoodats, we've made it to the end of the season. We're just about to step in and step on to week 18. And before the season started, I kind of had a real wide range of what I thought the Saints could be this season, and it wasn't necessarily like a wide range of like they're going to be horrible or they're going to be, hey, they may be pretty good, but it was a wide range between mediocrity, basically, because I thought they had a chance to be like somewhere between 7-10 and 10-7, like a 3-4 game range there, if all the injuries and some younger players play better than you expected, and maybe 10-7, but you don't have those young players stepping up, and you have injuries, which the Saints have injuries every year, so that was definitely bound to happen. Then you'd be 7-10, but man, they've just got the whirlwinds of injury waves and the injury bug that's hit the Saints the last 3-4 years. I mean, kind of thought that it maybe would have been kind of expected coming into this season, anyways. But didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was, to where it felt like it was a different starting lineup of like every position, like every week. You have a new starter or a new superstar, or one of your best players is down after every game, really. So that seemed kind of different than kind of what my prediction would have came up with. But yeah, it does. We're not even going to get there. We're not even going to get to 7-10, everybody. And just in best interest of the Saints, it's probably better that they do just go 5-12, because no matter, they've lost 3 games in a row and haven't moved from the 10 spot. So you can definitely see where the Saints, if they won this last meaningless game against the Buccaneers, where they would just probably plummet down the draft board, because they haven't moved an inch from losing 3 games in a row and even having a team ahead of them like the Raiders beat them. So probably the best thing that happened is maybe the Raiders beat the Chargers and the Saints lose to the Bucs and maybe move up 1 spot, maybe move up into the 8 or the 9 or the 8 spot. But anyway, so yeah, the season didn't go as we expected. The 2024-2025 NFL season, which the Saints are only good enough to play 1 game in 2025 of the 2024-2025 season. But let's get into this. So we've kind of talked about what our thoughts and our feelings were before the season. Obviously, none of that played out. I mean, it was kind of similar to the lower end of my prediction, was 7-10 and probably still not making the playoffs for the 4th straight year. And they just weren't even that good. But let's talk about this game a little bit. We're talking about this is the road game for the Saints. This will be at Raymond James, Sunday, January 5th, 2025. Happy New Year's, everyone, if I didn't get that out. And that should be 12 Central, 1 Eastern time. Let's just get into the injury report here, because this will kind of explain kind of the final injury report and the final decision, the final word on some of these players that have been kind of scratching and clawing and wanting to get back in and play the last couple games, but just haven't seen them, and that doesn't look as if that's going to happen. So injury report, Saints. First player on the Saints injury report is quarterback Derek Carr. left hand, he's dealing with like multiple spots in his left hand. I think got a spot in his hand and then a spot on his wrist that's broken, and they've been injecting it and seeing what his grip strength is, and it's just haven't seen anything positive enough to allow him to play or start. And he didn't practice all week and is out, and that's it. It kept Derek Carr active, available for, since the loss to the Giants, and him trying to Superman jump man at the end of that game to try to pick up a first down. And I finally realized it and believed that Derek Carr was done for the season once I didn't see him suit up for the Raiders. And then even just after that, like what was even the point of him even still being active after that? If he wasn't going to play against his former team in the Raiders, and what's the point of him coming back and playing against the Buccaneers? So disappointing, I guess, but just with how Derek Carr's contract is and how it all works out with renegotiating these contracts and things like that. We'll probably see Derek Carr again next year. It would just be nice if we see him and he's considered to be the 17 week starter for the Saints. It would be nice if he could stay healthy. That's kind of the one of my biggest knocks on Derek Carr now is he's injury prone, which you never really thought that was the highest thing on your list or on the main thing going off on your radar when signing Derek Carr 2 years ago, is that he's an injury prone starting quarterback. But that's what he's been kind of with the Saints. He's been pretty much average, what, 20 to 15, the top 20, top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL, but it's just his availability has killed him and made Saints fans and Houdats dislike him as much as anything. All right, so that's Derek Carr. We've seen the last of him. So this is a running back, Alvin Kamara, groin abductor injury. Didn't practice all week, but is listed as doubtful. Still wanting to come back and get that 50 yards so he can have 1,000 yards rushing for the first time in his career. And we're hearing Darren Rizzi say that he's going through game time situations and game plays and conditioning and stuff on Saturday to see if he would if there's any chance or any semblance that he could be available for the Sunday game against the Buccaneers. I mean, man, that's about like the only real great thing left. Anything positive for the season that could happen would probably be Alvin Kamara getting that 1,000-yard rushing, but it's only like just a couple sprinkles of stuff that could make the season worse is that he comes back and he completely shreds the thing off the bone and then ends up having to have surgery like Eric McCoy. So it's like it's a double-edged sword there, kind of like I want to see Alvin Kamara come back and get that 1,000 yards, but I also don't want to see him come back and then get even seriously injured to where it's an injury that ends up spilling over into rehab and into the off season. I could do without that. So still just a twinkle, maybe a twinkle, a sparkle of hope or light that Alvin Kamara might come back to try to get that 1,000 yards. But the thing is, even if he comes back and play, there's no guarantee that he's going to get that 1,000 yards. I would imagine the Buccaneers, if he comes back and plays, aren't going to want him to be able to get his first 1,000-yard rushing season on them. So I don't think it would be easy either. So I'm good on probably more than likely not seeing Alvin Kamara again until next season. And then on to running back. So talking about this just being week 18, the last game of the season, really no positives to pull from it. Well, here's like a perfect example of it. Running back Kendra Miller, who just the flashes and the moments that you get of him are exciting, and you see the talent there. But I swear it's just like a couple games and he's hurt, or a couple off-season training camps or practices and he's hurt, and it's just I don't know. It's an exhausting exhausting storyline follow with Kendra Miller always being hurt with something. I mentioned previous when it came out that it was a head injury, a concussion. That concussion and head injuries are up there with about the most serious injuries you can get. But at least with Kendra Miller, I guess at least it's not an ankle or a hamstring injury, which seemed to become a nagging issue with him. At least it's something different, but definitely not something good. But Kendra Miller, concussion, didn't practice all week and didn't pass concussion protocol, and he is out. But hopefully, because at least hopefully the rest of his body will be healthy for next off season, and hopefully he can stay out of the doctor's room come training the training and stay out of need of training staff come next season. But his body, at least come end of week 18, should be all healthy. It's just how they get his concussion and how he passes those protocols. So that's a bummer. Just a few young players that you won't get to see in the season finale because there's something wrong with them. They're hurt or concussed. And then you have defensive end Peyton Turner, ankle, didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, but was limited Friday and is listed as questionable. I would assume, just in regards to Peyton Turner, that he should probably want to play in this game, whether he's going to be a Saint next year or if anyone's going to be interested in signing him at all. He needs to put some footage out there, Peyton Turner. And then linebacker Pete Warner was dealing with a concussion as well. Didn't practice Wednesday, but was limited Thursday and full Friday, and he passed the concussion protocol, but he's still listed as questionable. But I think I would expect him to play. And then tight end Juwan Johnson, who, hey, it's been nice seeing him kind of come on at the end of the season here, making some catches and definitely seeing that Spencer Rattler has started to target his tight ends more, seeing how that's besides Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Alvin Kamara being out like that. Those are probably your best two options. Those Juwan Johnson and Foster Monroe. But got Juwan Johnson on here. Knee, he was limited Wednesday and limited Thursday and limited Friday. So he's limited all week and is listed as questionable. I would expect him to play. And then you have wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling, chest, was limited Wednesday, but was full Thursday and Friday and has no game status. So he's expected to play. Then you have wide receiver Chris Olave, head, was full all week, but is listed as questionable. And I don't expect him to play. I think this is just him kind of being able to get reconditioned, even though I know the season's almost over, but get reconditioned and get comfortable with how he feels out there on the field. I just don't see any reason for him to come back in this game. And this is the game where he originally got concussed, was like the first half of the season when the Saints played the Buccaneers the first time. Spencer Rattler threw him a hospital ball against the Buccaneers, and he got his head taken off by Antonio Winfield, and got fumbled and returned for a touchdown. So it looks like it's going to be the same starting quarterback at the helm. I'm good on seeing Chris Olave attempting to catch a hospital ball, a suicide ball from Spencer Rattler. But it is good to see that besides, I guess, the head injury, the concussion issue, everything else is healthy with Chris Olave, which that's a positive going into the next offseason, because I think he was coming into this season kind of dealing with like a hamstring or an ankle injury or something. So just being able to come into the next season, next mini camps and training camp, 100% healthy, and hopefully you got more confidence in how to protect yourself with the head injury. I know they got different stuff they can do to work with like the neck muscles and make your neck and head and shoulders stronger, so when you take a big hit, it's not as much of a shock. And then we've mentioned this a lot to Chris Olave, but come on, bro, you gotta wear the guardian cap. I know it looks kind of silly, but I mean, probably in about 5-10 years max, they'll be forcing everyone to wear one anyways. So just come on, Chris Olave, even if it helps reduce concussions by 5, 10, maybe just the 5%, any little bit, Chris Olave, you could need it, and we would really appreciate it because we know you can be a great player. You can be a great number 2 wide receiver if you can stay healthy and stay on the field. You could possibly increase your ability to catch contested catches. You could be a number 1 receiver, but we just don't. We know what Chris Olave is. We know what he can do. We don't need to see him in this meaningless game against the team that literally was headhunting him last time we played them. So I'm good on seeing that happen again. And then last, we have a linebacker, Willie Gay Jr., shoulder, wasn't on the injury report Wednesday and then was limited Thursday and Friday and is questionable. And I would expect him to play. These are the kind of games for players like Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, Peyton Turner, players like that, that this could possibly be their last game with the Saints. So you need to get out there with your last opportunity to show what you got, to show free agents and possible clients for next off season and free agency what you can do, and if you're worth another contract from anyone or maybe even the Saints themselves. All right. Now then, on to the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers injury report, which it's long, but I question whether they're maybe just trying to get some of these players if they're kind of have themselves already kind of filled in as that they're going to win the NFC South and they're going to be the number 4 seed. I think they think that it's just a done deal already, but I mean they have to win their game and they either have to win their game against the Saints or they need some miracle to happen in the Falcons to lose to the Panthers. But their injury report's long. It's as long as the Saints or even longer. But like I said, I feel as if it's more probably to rest some players and hope that they're going into the they're winning the NFC South and going into the playoffs healthy is what this kind of looks like to me. But cornerback Jamal Dean, knee, didn't practice all week and is out. Tight end Payne Darham, quadricep, didn't practice Wednesday but was limited Thursday and full Friday and has no game status. Then you have tight end Cade Otton, knee, didn't practice Wednesday but was limited Thursday and Friday but is listed as doubtful. So that kind of feels like a kind of a resting your player. Hope we make the playoffs so that you'll be ready for super wild card weekend. And then safety Antonio Winfield. We were just talking about how he has a direct connection with Chris Olave's head injuries. Knee, didn't practice Wednesday but was limited Thursday and Friday and is out. And I look at that as that's one of their best defensive players. So I imagine they're just keeping him out of this game. And Chris Olave is probably not going to play in this game. So there's no reason to have Antonio Winfield around to knock his head off and take his fumble back for a strip six. We're good, but he's out and not probably just hopefully saving him for the playoffs, I assume. And then we have tight end Devin Colt, ribs, limited Wednesday and then full Thursday and Friday, no game status. And then you have wide receiver Mike Evans, rest, limited Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, and limited Friday and no game status. And I imagine Mike Evans is going to play. I think he needs 8 catches for something, maybe to get 100 catches, I think, and then needs like 85 yards to get 1,000 yards receiving for like the consecutive time since he was drafted in 2015 or 2016. He's had almost coming into this season, almost as had 1,000 yards in every season. So Mike Evans is looking to get that 85 yards against the Saints to get that 1,000 yards, and I'm sure they'll pull him as quick as anybody once they get that, or if they get that. Like I was mentioning how the Buccaneers probably wouldn't want to give the 50 yards to Alvin Kamara that he wants to get his 1,000 yards. I imagine Saints don't want to give that. Saints secondary doesn't want to give up 85 yards to Mike Evans either, so he can get his 1,000 yards, which I would say is probably a little more meaningful than Alvin Kamara's, and just historically and like Hall of Fame wise, it's probably more meaningful getting that consecutive 1,000 yard receiving season. And then you had defensive lineman William Golston. Knee was limited Wednesday and Thursday, and then didn't practice Friday and is listed as questionable. And you have running back Bucky Irving, shoulder and slash shin, was limited Wednesday, Thursday, and then full Friday, and has no game status. And then we have wide receiver Sterling Shepard, hamstring, was limited all week and is listed as questionable. And then you have tackle Tristan Wirth, foot and knee, limited all week but has no game status. And then linebacker, the defensive quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their team captain, essentially Levante David, listed strictly as rest, practice Wednesday and Thursday, and then didn't practice Friday and has no game status. So imagine he's going to play. So those are your injuries. There's a lot of compare and contrast to a team that's looking and most likely going to make the playoffs, to one that's just maybe looking to mess it up, screw it up for one of their division opponents. That's kind of all I see out of this. Definitely, just in any kind of compare and contrast to these injury reports. And I think the Saints injury report would look a lot longer if you pulled off players that went out earlier in the season or on IR. But yeah, season-ending IR. But yeah, there's definitely not a lot to compare and contrast there with the Buccaneers and their injury report. I don't think it leads to much victory-wise. The Buccaneers are just healthier and better at this point in time, and definitely have a better quarterback in Baker Mayfield, better and healthier. But anyway, so let's move to MVPs, hot takes, and picks and scores for this game. So MVP, wasn't sure of when we were finally going to get to see him, but we finally got to see him last week against the Raiders, and he ended up being leading rusher after Spencer Rattler, who was their leading rusher with 4 carries for 48 yards. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he only had 5 or 6 carries for 20 yards, but he was the Saints' leading rusher, non-quarterback rusher last week. But now it looks like probably no Kendra Miller. It's real dicey on whether we'll see Alvin Kamara come back and try to get that 1,000 yards. So it looks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be their number 1 running back, and you've heard the stories from him, how he kind of, I don't know, it just looked like he gave up or lost his motivation for football when he was in Kansas City, and they put him on non-injury related IR and stuff like that, and finally had to cut him. I don't know, I think he was dealing with some family issues, but then he comes here to New Orleans and said that was one of his biggest dreams, is to play for the Saints and to see his name on the back of one of those jerseys. So maybe there's a new spark, fire lit in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I mean, he's only 25 years old, so I mean, for most running backs, should be just entering his prime. So if he get that spark, that fire back, and get to where he was when he was a 32nd pick in the first round in 2020, to where you see the first round capabilities and talent again. I would love to see that as a good 1-2 or even a running back by committee with Alvin Kamara, a healthy Alvin Kamara, a healthy Kendra Miller, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'd much rather see Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Jamal Williams or Mims, Jordan Mims. I definitely would love to see him, and love to see him thrive over those two. So my MVP, offensive pregame MVP for this game is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If nothing else, he's going to be the Saints' leading rusher in this game, at least non-quarterback leading rusher in this game. And now then, my hot take for this game against the Saints versus the Buccaneers is the Saints are going to keep Mike Evans from 85 yards. They're not going to allow him to get those 85 yards and 1,000 and get that. Well, I'm trying to think if it's like a I'm trying to think as he's going like on 10 or 11 in a row, that 1,000-yard season. But that's what they're trying to stop. And the Saints are going to stop that. So they're going to give a little bit of agony to the Buccaneers and hit them where it hurts. They don't have very many opportunities where they can affect really any NFL team or any division opponent right now coming into Week 18 with the record that they have. But messing up some personal stats would be a little bit of comfort going into the offseason for Saints fans and who that. So keep messing his Hall of Fame stretch and reign up and keeping him from having like 10,000-yard seasons in a row would be nice. And him not being able to pick up that 85 yards that he needed after missing 3 or 4 games this season, not being able to just mop it up all easy and take that as a gotcha because he sees the Saints Week 18. So no 1,000-yard season for Mike Evans, and so I'll keep that close eye on that during this game as a few things worth looking at during this game. And now picks and scores. This is kind of a funny one because we can help the Falcons or we can help the Bucks kind of in both ways. We lose to the Bucks, and the Panthers win, or the Falcons win, and then the Falcons are in. Even if the Falcons win, if the Saints lose to the Bucks win. So what would be like a fun way to kind of make this unpleasant and not a joy to watch for both of these fans of both of these teams? I think a good way for it to go or start would be the Panthers and the Saints. They play at the same time. The Falcons play the Panthers at noon, 1 Eastern time, and the Saints play the Buccaneers at noon, 1 Eastern time. So the fun way for this to play out would be that the Falcons get up a couple scores early on the Panthers, making it look like, oh, it's a sure thing. Now we just need the Saints to hold up their end of the bargain, which the Saints have been doing that. If you've been a Houdat or a Saints fan the last 3-4 seasons, you've been at Week 17, Week 18. You're just waiting. You're just needing this other team to, if they hold up their end of the bargain, then the Saints will be the 7th seed or be the 6th seed in the playoffs. Well, we're kind of leading that. We're kind of being the drivers of this situation this year. So I think we'll take control of that. So we see the Falcons get up a couple scores early in this game. What would be kind of fun and kind of to add some agonizing moments, at least for Falcons fans and Buccaneers fans too, would be if the Saints actually kind of led this game early on. Maybe they went up a couple scores. Maybe they went up 10-0 in this game. And then as this game gets closer in, it kind of looks like the Falcons have pretty much won against the Panthers. Is if this game, so you got Panthers fans all celebrating because the Saints have the lead and they're pretty much controlling the Panthers. But then as the game kind of goes down the stretch, and we could see where maybe there's just an explosion in the first quarter where Spencer Rattler and the Saints get 10 points, and then maybe you're even shut out the rest of the game. We've seen that this year, to where they just kind of see these little explosions from Spencer Rattler and the Saints offense, and then they kind of just go dormant the rest of the game. So maybe we see that kind of flow over into the second half, to where obviously the Buccaneers tie the game up 10-10, and then there's just a few sparse scores here and there, and then the Saints final score ends up being like 20-20, and it ends up going into overtime where the Saints and Buccaneers are fighting back and forth. The Falcons have already won. Their fans are biting their fingernails down to the nubs, and it finally comes down to it's 20-20. The time in overtime is run down to where there's like 5 seconds left, and the Saints are lining up to kick like a 40-yard or maybe 45 or less field goal, because in the NFL, 45 and under field goals are like chip shots nowadays. So that would be boding tons of confidence in that moment for Falcons fans as Blake Grupe lines up to kick like a 45 or under field goal, and he misses. He misses, leading it to being a tie game, 2020 Saints versus Bucks 2020, and just with that tie, the 500, the half of win is what pushes the Buccaneers over the top in the NFC South, and they win the NFC South after the Falcons thought that they had it wrapped up, had the Saints securing the bag for them, but just at the end, how the Saints have been doing things all year, they fumbled the bag at the end. But being that they did it for the Falcons, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for that show, and I'm ready. So that's your game. That's the Falcons versus Saints, or the Saints versus Buccaneers. We saw a disgusting version of this towards the first half of the season, where we were talking about the explosions and the going offs in quarters that Spencer Rattler led offenses have done, where he had 27 points in the second quarter, and then in the second half, he was blitzed into oblivion. Let's see, yeah, was that Todd Bowles? No, that's yeah. So Todd Bowles in the second half blitzed him into oblivion, and anytime there was more than four rushers coming, Spencer Rattler just couldn't handle it. So seeing that is more than likely what I expect from this game. But if we could just twist the blade a little bit here and there, and as much as possible when it comes to Falcons or Buccaneers, just on our way out the door, that would be good with me. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. I mean, now that after week 18's over, we'll be heading to Black Monday, so we'll actually see what the Saints start cooking up in their head coaching search, and just a month or two after that, we'll be knee deep in draft potential, like what the draft picks are going to be, if they trade any more assets to accumulate more picks. But I feel good about the Saints needing to draft a lot of players. They need quantity over quality is what they need for the first time in several years. Quantity over quality. They need to pick about 10 to a dozen players and hope that 4 or 6 of them turn out to be just quality starters. But there's more to come. That'll be coming down the pike in just a couple months. But for now, it's week 18, and hopefully we can ruin a NFC South rivals day on Sunday. We can ruin their Sunday and just their year if they're getting bumped out of the playoffs completely. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?